All right. Hello, everyone. Good morning. I guess we all are visible and you all are kind of able to hear me properly. Hi, my name is Meet Gupta, who is the organizer of this meetup. You guys might have seen me organizing other meetups also for Swift Delhi. It has been a while. We have not heard any meetups around the town to kind of talk about tech, specifically iOS. So here we are. We are bringing this meetup by under the kind of banner of Mobile Flock, and it is sponsored by Tokopedia. And here you see we are going to talk about a lot of technical stuff that are kind of good, useful for many different size of companies, products, and things like that. We are going to have 4 sessions today. You guys would have seen already the rundown. We'll start with the very first session of Measure What Matters by Aman Gupta. Say hi to Aman. He is live too. You can see him, I guess. Aman is a senior software engineer. He's a lead software engineer. Basically, he kind of recently got promoted, and I need to kind of make habit of kind of calling him a lead. So sorry, Aman. Yeah, he's a lead software engineer taking care of very complex projects of e-commerce modules, wherein like a lot of you see very dynamic and UI kind of comes up for the users, and that is where he try to kind of look at various aspects of performance and things like that. So I'll not take much time, and I'll shift the mic to I'll kind of give this virtual mic to Aman and let him speak for himself. Hope you guys would have a nice time.
So yeah, me just to give you a bit over that. So during the introduction, I also wrote like senior software engineer, so it's not a problem for your side only. So yeah, hello everyone. Good morning. I hope I'm not interrupting your breakfast routine. Yeah, thank you for taking time for Mobile Flock. So as me introduce me, my name is Aman Gupta, and I'm currently working at Tokopedia. So yeah, today we'll be discussing about measuring what matters, as you can see on the screen. So basically, to measure something, so you should know what actually you want to measure, or what actually matters. So like in every organization, in every organization, along with other core values, there is one common value. Uh, that is basically focus on consumer. So there will be a common value in every organization which will be focused around focus on consumer. Everyone is thriving to give a hassle free experience to their consumer, and to do so, basically we need to know the pain points of the user while they are using our product. So to in order to achieve that, we did a survey. We found out that the users were having a slow perception for our application, and that was serious, as it might lead to less conversion, and maybe who knows, users might uninstall your app or stop using it. So yeah, that was a serious problem. So we took some steps to solve this problem, which basically started by measuring some metrics, and we will discuss one such important metric that we measured, and that helped us to improve the user experience. So yeah, so any guesses, guys? uh, I know this is a stream and you guys are intelligent and you have guessed it right. So yeah, I know you all did. So yeah, it is page load time, aka PLT. So yeah, what is PLT? So PLT is basically like the time taken by any page to load. So to load, what does it mean to load? So let's first define this. That what is a time? What do you call when a page is loaded? So from the initiation of the page until the page is available for the user to be accessible and to be interactable. So till that time, the time is we define it as page load time. So if I read it out, page load time is the time from initiation of the page to the completion of the loading of the page. So it is accessible to the users. So this is our definition of PLT, and this is how we measured it. So yeah. So, but every one of you, like this pretty guy, might have a question that why PLT? So let's go into that. So user want the applications to work seamlessly, especially on mobile. Like they want the applications to be going seamlessly. So majority of our users can't wait to get a response from a mobile app, right? So the ideal, so it is a survey that tells us the data that the ideal loading time for a mobile app is about 2 seconds. The mobile app page is about 2 seconds. However, a study by Akamai Research shows that for every additional second that your app consumes, the conversion rate, so whatever the conversion metrics for your application is, the conversion rate declines by 7%. Right? That is a significant figure. So yeah, to add to the misery to that, like user tend to get frustrated and angry if they have to wait longer. So like we have been a user by ourselves as well, and we faced it too. So if we find some application to be taking longer, then what we do is we just either we don't go back to the same app, or we uninstall it, or we stop using it, right? So this is how user act to it. So yeah, so it turns out that a performance is very critical part for our applications. So as users notices your app performance when it degrades, but when you have many tasks on your pages, so it is kind of hard for you to signify it, for you to identify basically the places where your performance is degrading. So in order to visualize that, we are measuring PLT, and yeah, that's why we chose the PLT as a metric to basically start our improvements on. Yeah. Now, moving on to the environments to measure PLT. So we figured out like there can be two environments on which we can measure PLT. So first one is pre-prod PLT. So it is in this method basically we run a UI job schedule on CI machines on different devices, which will gather the data for the page load time for different pages, and we'll use that data to basically like come on conclusion on where we are lagging and how to improve those. So this is a pre-prod process. And second one is production PLT. So in this we make use of metric kit, and which measures the data and sends the data periodically to us. So basically it is the live users data. So every user, every production user that is using your app will be contributing to this data, so they'll be providing you this data. Today mainly we will focus on pre-production PLT. So our focus point will be the pre-production PLT. So without further ado, I'll start with the how, the most curious part for today, the how we measure PLT. So yeah. So basically, it starts from adding events on critical areas in on your page, which contributes to the load time. It starts with it. Now as this is so as we are discussing pre-prod environment PLT, so we need users to run the application for that particular job. So for that we chose our UI test routine to do the job for us. So these will help us interact with application and record the events that we added on the pages. So yeah, we took help of UI test routines there as our users. Yeah. So these events which are logged are then extracted from the logged files, and these are being sent to the backend. So yeah, so these will be sent to the backend where it is all logged, and that will be our central data store for our performance matrices for a page load time, and we'll use that data so to in order to create information from it using a various visualizing tool such as Google Data Studio. Yeah, so we will visualize it using Google Data Studio, and yeah, that's how we will measure it. So it might feel a lot right now, but yeah, relax. We'll discuss each step in detail. So yeah, let's move on to it. So recording time-based event on our page. So this is the bit that we are doing, like adding events on the critical region. So we need to first figure out what are the critical region that can contribute to a page load time, the degradation in page load time. So we figured out that there are three particular places that we can do that: the initialization, the network call, and the rendering. So these three can contribute to the page load time. So what we did is we added events on init when it started, and then before the network starts, we will finish the init time, and then when the network starts, we will log a event of network start, and when it ends, similarly we will end the network event, and then we'll go to the render and follow the same steps there as well. So yeah, this is how we are adding events. Now you must be curious, like what we used to basically log event. So we use signpost. So signpost is a very lightweight logging system, which is using the same OS log systems from behind, and it is basically, signpost is basically for logging the time based event, the start and beginning, the beginning and end of any event. So yeah, so we found it a good fit in our use case, and we use this signpost log for logging our critical events on the pages. Right. So now, so this is a snippet on how you can add a signpost event on your pages. So yeah, so this is just so we'll use the same OS log, and then there is this method in the signpost API that you can use for denoting the beginning of an event and denoting the end of the event similarly. So yeah, we use this signpost to basically log these events in our particular method as well. So yeah, moving on to the second step, that was so we are done with adding the events on the page. Now we need to write UI test as well for the test routine. So we need to write the UI test. So this is a snippet from our UI test, and what it does is it basically gathers the metrics. Which so first of all, this is a measure method which test kit provide us. So basically, in this we can define matrices that we want to capture uh, while the block is executing. So whatever the code is written in the block, while that executes, it will capture all the matrices which are defined in the matrices array. So for example sake, on your screen you can see that the matrix array contains three matrices. So it is the init time, the network time, and the render time, as we discussed. So yeah, it is for the home page. So we'll be what in essentially in the block we'll be doing is that we'll be opening the home page and waiting for it to render. So why I said waiting it for to the for rendering, because at that time the initiation would be done, the network time will also be calculated, and we have also calculated the render time, because everything is rendered on the page so that the page is interactable to the user. So yeah, in the block, we wrote a UI test routine which can look as simple as this one on your screen. So yeah, it is just opening up of that particular page which you are recording the matrices for, and just waiting there for the page to render, so that all the matrices are recorded. Yeah. So when you will run these type of test, so you'll get a silver diamond on your test when your test succeeds, which will tell you the recorded metrics in this format. So when you'll run it, you'll get a silver diamond, as I said, and when you click on that silver diamond, you'll get these matrices. Like as you can see on the screen on the first screenshot, there is basically home init, which took an average of 0. Like this is a very long term. Yeah, you can read it out. So yeah, So basically, it took that much time for init. It is an average time because this measure, this basically test executes for a iteration of 5. So we can update that iteration as well, but by default it executes for 5 iteration. And for that, the average init time is shown in this particular area of matrices. Yeah. And similarly, it is recorded for network time and render time as well. Yeah. So this is how it will look when you run these tests uh, on your application. So now, so we can see the matrices, but it is of no use till the time we can get some visualized data or a meta from it, right? So in order to do that, what we do is we basically so every test routine results in an output of xc result file. So xc result file will contain the output for our test routine. So in this we use a tool xcparse, which will parse the xc result file, and that will give us the logs. And in those logs, what we'll do is we will apply a regex pattern to find out the signpost events that we logged during our test routines. So yeah, so in this so I'll go once again. So in from the xc result file, we use a tool xcparse to parse it into logs, and from those logs we will extract out the signpost event data, and and using a regex pattern. So yeah, and now this data will be used to send to the backend, and from there we can use it to for various visualizing tool. So currently we are using Google Data Studio for that. So yeah, so that can take various data sources. So just to give you a sneak peek on that, like how Data Studio data will look like. So it will look like this when you have added the data source to it and configured the graphs. So basically it is a real time graph of one of our pages. So basically, like as you can see, the purple line is basically the target, or we call it the baseline. So so the page was basically performing badly, and like we found out some improvement areas according to this data, and then we tried to optimize our page according to that. So yeah, so we optimized it, and we try to keep it below the baseline, as that is the target. So yeah, so this is so just to tell you the blue, what blue line stands for. Blue line stands for the total time the page took for to be accessible to the users, and the pink line denotes the network time that it took. So yeah, now now I think we can go to the we can go to the code part to see just a bit of it. Like yeah, so help me out if you can see the code part here.
I still see your note.
Yeah, can you see it now?
Yeah, I can see export.
Yeah, there is something wrong with that. It is going by himself. Yeah, so basically I'll try to manage it. This should not be the case. It is working by itself. Anyways, yeah. So so this is kind of a wrapper that we wrote to over signpost to basically log the events. So as you can see in the I'll just increase the size for the text a bit. I don't know why it is wrong, but it is going by itself. Sorry, guys. Yeah, it is going by itself. is fine now. So basically, so as you can see, the track start and track end method. So in this, we are logging the beginning and the end of the events. So this is using the same signpost that I explained. So basically, we use this in our performance tracking manager. So in this, basically, we have different helper methods like start, which will start the initialization of your page, then start network, which will, and then finish network, which will finish the network call, and then start the rendering phase of your page, and lastly the finish method, which will just finish the rendering flow as well. So now, just to see how we can add it to a page that we are using, I'll just go to this view controller, and this is very bad. Yeah, guys. So yeah,
Aman,
like here we started our metric record. So yeah, in the view did load, we started the initialization of the page. Yeah, yeah, me.
increase the font a little bit more. It is not visible
Yeah, Meet,
that
you were
much.
saying something? Yeah, sorry guys, might be some. Yeah, sure, sure. Is it fine now? I am based on your input, Meet. Please help me. Yeah. So basically, in the view did load, we started the initialization, and we basically simulated a network call over here by using sleep. Due to some reasons, I use sleep, not a network call, just to demonstrate it easily. So basically, before that particular call, we started the network, and after that call, basically we finished the network. And similarly, when the image is rendered, we finish the whole process. So this will record the uh, uh, critical events of our page, and then we will use it in the test routine that I already have shown you on the slide. It is the same test routine here. So yeah, so in this way, it will just, as I explained, it will record the matrices and record it to XC results file. Now this is we talked till now about the local things that we are doing. So I'll just quickly go back to the slides. Yeah. So, like how to automate this whole system is like how we automated this whole system. Like this is what we needed for the development. So what we did is we run these UI tests using our CI servers. On the CI servers, we run these test routines on various devices to collect data for them for the page load time on different variations of devices. And then on the server, we used scripts to basically parse these logs using XC parse, and get the data out of it to make a HTTP request and send it to the server. And now we export this data on the backend into a Excel sheet, and that Excel sheet will be used in our Google Data Studio to present you graphs like this. Yeah, so this is how we automated the whole system. So yes, so yeah guys, this is about it. So the code, which I'm not able to show you very correctly because there were some issues with my trackpad and it was not working fine. So yeah, you can find the code on this particular repo. It is an open repo, so you can use this repo to explore it, and you can ping me anywhere, maybe on mobile flock, Slack channel, or any social media that you prefer, so I can help you with that. Thank you guys.
Thanks, Aman. That was quite informative, I guess, for everybody. I'll quickly kind of present the page wherein people have kind of asked some questions. Let me just present that. You can stop. You can continue to present whenever it is needed. Yeah. So I kind of see one question coming up. That asks like why measure page load time manually instead of using Firebase performance, for example. Aman, you are not audible. You are on mute.
Yeah, am I audible now?
Yes, you are.
Yeah, sorry, I was speaking on mute. So basically, yes. So this is a control environment that we wanted to measure on various devices on pre-prod basis. So we have looked into Firebase as well for our production matrices, but there were some issues with Firebase that it was giving a hard time to us for it basically. So if so it was crashing our application. Maybe it is just our use case that it was crashing, but yeah, so we figured some issues with that. And yeah, also on PLT, on pre-prod PLT, we basically figured that there are no dependencies on any third party. So yeah, so that would be like why we have gone with this approach as well.
All right. I hope people kind of got some information around why you choose the manual code, the customized code for getting the PLT and raising the graphs and alerts. Okay, so let's move on to the next question. Rahul asks, how much does this metric PLT actually helped in conversion on UX per se?
So basically, we have gathered the data for our pages, and we actually improved our performance on various pages, like home page, like that is our main page. So right now, I do not have the data of the conversion that we achieved, but yeah, we on the part of improvement, we improved the home page rendering time to be below 2 seconds, and it was previously way high. So yeah, I currently don't have the data for it, so yeah, might get back to you with it.
Okay, so probably like I can kind of take that on behalf of Aman because this was the project that I was looking at when I was at Tokopedia. So there were various numbers that we kind of getting from various pages like home, SRP, PDP, discovery, and many pages actually. And everywhere the page load time was kind of, coming different, and baselining was happening on the basis of the average and a bit ambitious planning on that. Earlier, we used to kind of get the feedbacks from UX user surveys and application reviews from the store about the slowness and perceived slowness of the things. But yeah, so later when we kind of started to get into this particular metric, we started to monitor and we started to get alerts around like if it is kind of going below 2 seconds, and some pages it was just 0.8 second, which was kind of tremendous number. So after that we started to kind of looking at different perspectives of the code, where exactly it is taking time and all, so that we can kind of rocket and laser focus our effort. And later it kind of helped a lot in getting those minimizing those feedbacks around slowness of the application. So yeah, it did help. There was not much of a metric how I can say that how it helped, but in terms of number, yeah, some pages are below 2 seconds in PLT, and some pages are even below like 1 second, and that looks kind of great. All right, let me kind of have a look at the live chat if we have any more question people have asked there or not. Okay, so Kapil sends e-claps for you, Aman, and Paras says it was a good start to the meetup. So thanks a lot, guys. Thanks, Aman, for taking time to kind of share the project that you worked on. Um, so all right, guys, what we'll have is like so there are a couple of things in the live chat. I kind of shared a form please fill out the form. Uh, it is kind of getting all the details. As Tokopedia is hiring, we might kind of get in touch with you. Second thing is like we'll be using Pigeonhole for all the Q&A, so you can ask in the top chat also. I mean, in that live chat also, I can kind of read and ask questions from the speakers, or we can just go back to the Pigeonhole and take that. Third thing is like we'll kind of have two sessions, and after that we'll have free rooms with the speakers. So it's like one free room with one speaker, another free room with another speaker, and the links are posted on that event link on Meetup. So you can kind of join once we are kind of done with all the two sessions, the first two sessions. So all right, thanks a lot, Aman. And here I'm kind of clapping for you for on behalf of everybody. All right, let me kind of get you another speaker. You can grab your water bottle and have a sip of that. Let me grab you another speaker. Next, Viranchee and Lotia would be talking about. He would be talking about how he kind of implemented private properties in Swift protocols, and it is kind of touch your nerves around. And the meta programming. Here Viranchee, he's here, and say hi to Viranchee, say hi to the public and the community. And yeah, so we are not sitting at the same place of Cycle Garage. He has his own cycle in Mumbai, I have my own in NCR. So yeah, there we are. So Viranchee was previously working with the Hedy as an iOS engineer, and recently he moved to a new company called Wednesday. The company name is Wednesday. I'm not saying he joined on Wednesday. The name is Wednesday. All right. So over to you, Viranchee. It's all yours. Floor is yours. This e-mic is yours. I'm going mute.
Hey, hello everyone. I'm so glad to see you all born in the morning, waking up and coming for this. So I will be talking about how I implemented private properties and protocols, and how can I share my screen? Okay, screen share. Yes, my screen is visible. Okay,
Yeah, to me,
so
yes.
so how I implemented private properties and protocols, and why did I implement them? So basically it is defining a protocol and the functions that you have in protocol, and then you have a variable in the protocol and you set it as a get. But I wanted it to be private because what happened is I had to use this simple interface across many UI screens, and subclassing it would be limiting me. So I was using table views and collection views and a Tinder swipe view as well in the app that I was making. So if I would subclass then implement, I would have to maintain three implementations at the same time. Like I had to scroll the screen and there were videos on every cell, and then I had to play and pause the videos. So there's a good example that I'm giving one about UI label and how I did that. So I want this private here, and if I try to build this, Xcode gives me an error. Uh, so let's assume that private was not there. We have a label, we have a set label, and we have a get label. And our default implementation would be extension label settable because it's the protocol we have here, and then get label, set label. So if label was available, and on this protocol extension we can do this, we can do that, correct? But now we have the protocol which says private, and Xcode crashes. Xcode says private is not allowed, and I want to use private because with private I am limiting my exposure of this UI label, as well as what I'm doing is not allowing other things outside the class to modify this label, and that follows object oriented design principles of abstraction. And now since label is not accessible, this extension label settable, it has this label.text label is not available. So there's an error, there's a build error. So how do we do it? So I did this by first removing this private. So we have in the protocol label, set label, and get label. It's a very simple thing. And then this code compiles. Correct? Am I going moving too fast? I'm on mute.
You're not
Okay.
mute and you're
No.
not being
Okay.
fast, so you carry on.
Okay. Yep. And now this is the regular implementation, and then I'll make this label, which is right now public. I'll make it private. So to make this private, my idea was to have this piece of code be copy pasted in all the classes that conform to label settable. So this piece of functionality will be copy pasted in all the classes. Like there are 4 classes conforming to label settable. So all these this will be copy pasted into the four Swift files at the below of it. So I'll copy paste. So this is custom view, it is a UI view, and then I have a label settable, and then I copy pasted it. It works because this is a private and I'm in the same file. I can access this right now. But now I want to automate this stuff. And so that's where sourcery and gyb, and this is what is called meta programming. And I set it out. I mark as in this is sourcery specific. I'm telling to sourcery that it to do inline, and then in table view cell this cell and label settable. I think there's a specific implementation of sourcery where it copy pastes, and this is this is a template file, and I have set it such that it will copy paste this functionality into table view cell table view cell dot label settable, and I'll show the live implementation here. So I have here is a very basic view controller, and then here table view cell, which conforms to UI label settable, and I have this UI label settable which contains a label. I'll open it here. Uh, yes. So here is the UI label settable, and I have a label here. I have a label here. It's public, as in public. What do we call it? Internal. It is an internal variable. And then I want to make. Then I have this two methods, and there's an extension. Yeah, set label and get label. Now, right now, the builds work, but I want to remove this. I removed all this, and the builds fail because here I have UI label settable. It it needs a label, and then it also needs these two methods, which these 3 things are not available. And I'll do it by initializing sourcery in the project. So before this session started, I modified the build sourcery build phase and removed this. So this is what is needed. I need this sourcery command, and then a sourcery stuff which helps me in where the sources are, and what templates to build upon. The template is here. So right now what I did in this template, what I did is uh, this extension that I wrote here, I copied it, and I went to the stencil, I pasted it, I added a mark. This piece of code from sourcery start to sourcery end, this piece of code will be copy pasted, this thing, and this is the DSL for sourcery. So right now when I build it, and here this conforms to UI label settable, and sourcery copy pasted this implementation for me. There was not It wasn't there before, so I'll just delete it and then I'll build it. Right now it fails. Okay, I'll build it again. It will come up here. It automates it. I'll delete it and I'll build it again. It comes here automatically. So this is how I can mark this as private, and then I can remove this thing and I build it. Okay, so maybe build steps, I need to change the build steps. Build phases, I'll put sorcery up. How do I move it up? I need to move this build phase up. Yes, so now it works. Here's the implementation, copy pasted by Sushi. Never mind this stuff. And there's a private, and still okay. I have a mistake here. This needs to go. Needs to go. So I have a label settable class which has two methods: get label and set label. And what I'm doing is, instead of writing it in an extension in the protocol extension, I am telling sorcery to copy paste this specific stuff into all the classes that conform to UI set label settable. So right now, if I go into a new class and then at the end of it, I write class X. I hope it's the same UI label or UI label settable, and then here it will. So here, any class that conforms to your label settable, it will get all these functionality for free. So this is about how I achieved private properties in Swift protocols. So why I did that? Because my colleagues said me that I had a table view here, a table view, and then I removed the private stuff. And my colleague said that these table view, it is breaking the abstraction functionality, abstraction principle in object oriented programming. And if I had other screens, another classes which had UI collection view, UI a custom Tinder swipe view, and if I wrote the implementation, I'd have to manage all this implementation at all those places. I wanted to do is every time a user scrolls or goes to the next cell, the video player should pause, and the next video player, the new video player should play stuff. And I came up with this approach by thinking about it. Just thinking about it, if I could copy paste this implementation and I could automate copy pasting this implementation, and then I researched about. So I got to know. I was watching point free videos at that time, and they had introduced case paths in their code, and case paths included them using the Swift metaprogramming tool. I think it's called GYB or Generate Your Boilerplate, or they use the new one, the new Swift tool. And then I researched about the tools available, and I found sorcery to be solving my problem. I initialized sorcery by going to here build phases, and then I added sorcery here, a build phase called sorcery. Also had to install it in the pod file. So here the pod file only has sorcery, and then I configured it. So here's the configuration that uh, it's going to be. The config will be in project directory. The project directory here, it is .sorcery.yml. It needs this, and I'll be compiling all the Swift files in views and helpers. And right now, I put something in helpers, and that's why I did it. But if I do it in singleton, as in this folder won't be done for sorcery. As in sorcery will be ignoring this folder. I go here, I add a class, then I remove this implementation. This won't build because source tree won't be adding it to this stuff, because I have instructed source tree to go only in views and helpers and not in the this singleton folder. So it will fail. So this is simply how I did private properties in protocol. How do I stop? Any
Uh, we-
questions?
yeah, there are questions. So you can stop sharing the screen probably,
Yes.
or maybe when it is needed, we can come back. Let me
Yes.
kind of open the pigeonhole. Okay, in pigeonhole, I don't find any new questions, but I see some questions from the live chat.
Hmm?
So, so Rahul asked, like, what exactly you want to achieve with sorcery? Could you please explain the context? It
Yes.
is
Yes.
quite random.
So I had this mobile app that I was making, and I wanted to. I was reading composition. I was reading this things, Objective-C.io books and Point Free Co videos, and then programming books and stuff. And everyone encouraged using this thing, uh, avoiding subclassing, and then going through the composition way. And I was in a situation right now where I had to I had some piece of similar code, and I wanted to use it across many different classes. So my colleagues said me to subclass a table view and then write a default implementation for that. And he had no idea about my project using table views and then collection views, and then on some cases the Tinder like swipe views. So if I subclass a table view cell, and then I use as in the method will be calling a table view, and then so what happens is I was locking my table view down to the specific. If ever I wanted to use a table view, I have to use the specific table view class that I had made. And if I wanted to do it for a collection view, I had to make a new class for collection view and then do it. So so that so that is why I opted for this approach, sorcery based approach, where all the common pieces of functionality stay outside in an extension. And and sorcery will do is copy paste all this implementation to all the files conforming to that protocol. So every time I needed to make a change to the functionality of it, I don't have to go into all the files or the subclass. The subclasses would be four subclasses, and then they would be rigid. If I wanted a single subclass in future to change implementation, I had to subclass it again, and that would be limiting to me. So this is why sorcery kicked in. The sorcery helped me here to write about it. I'm sorry, I might not be that explanative about it.
No worries. I guess this kind of gave them some insight about like what exactly why exactly you kind of used sorcery. Probably you might want to kind of give a quick recap of like what exactly was the problem and why you had to kind
Huh.
of
The
wait.
problem was the problem
Okay,
was that
we have.
my pull request was stopped. My pull request was halted because I had all the table views and all the collection views. I had made them public as an internal. So my colleagues were they had a red flag that why am I doing this? This should be private, and I shouldn't be exposing UI views and so on. And to achieve that, because I was writing the same piece of functionality in a protocol, and for protocol to access the table views and the collection views, it needed these properties to be internal. And I wanted this for my PR to pass. I wanted to make them private. So this is what I came up with as in sorcery makes this this table views and collection views private by copy pasting all the extension code into the classes.
All right. Okay, so I see one comment on the live chat that says that
Third
probably like,
party.
yeah, about the third party, and if it looks like an overkill. Would you want to kind of comment on that?
So it happened is to follow object oriented principles and to follow object oriented principles as well as to follow this thing composition. I had to do it, and it worked. I was on a deadline. It worked.
Okay, so like it seemed like it has been some time that when you used it. Do you see any alternative approach now to kind of avoid the third party or anything like that?
um, no, there's a good approach if you want to do both. If you want to make as in properties or functions methods private, and you want to do as you want to achieve composition as well, then this will do it. If you don't want to use third party, if you want to use first party, then go for GYB or Swift has two meta programming tools. One is GYB, the and another one, there's one more if you search about it.
All right, all right, cool. I guess we don't have any questions, or
But
do
it,
we?
no, it doesn't increase the size. I'm not putting sourcery in the output of it. As in, if you do JavaScript development, you have a dependency and you have a dev dependency. It is like the sourcery is like a dev dependency. I am only using it to copy paste the functionality. The code code is being copy pasted only to specific classes, and then sourcery comes out of it. Sourcery is not shipped with the app.
All right. I see one question coming from Pigeonhole, and it tries to ask about one thing that do we need to create a protocol to use sorcery?
No, Sourcery works on Sourcery, a very good library that he developed. You don't need protocols. For my use case, I needed protocols. Uh, where is the question? Do we need to create a protocol? No. We do not need a protocol. You can tell it to work on specific types. I'll show you. I'll share my screen.
Sure. Please go ahead.
So here, I think for type in types implementing, I'm saying here types dot implementing dot UI label settable, and here you can see types implementing UI label settable. This is how Sourcery targets this specific protocol. If you want, you can say UI table view cell, and table view cell is actually a class. It's not a protocol. So for type in types dot implementing dot UI table view cell, so then you can target UI table view cells, or you can do as I don't know much about this Sourcery's how to target it specifically, but there's a good documentation about it. So I'm doing types and types implementing, and then this specific piece of functionality I wrote for me to understand a type dot name, and then here the same is written. Type dot name, type is table view cell, and this copy pastes here. And if I do is where is it? I add a lol here, I'll see a lol here. Make sense? If I add something here, hey, how are y'all? And then I build it, and I can see, come on. Okay, okay. I think this doesn't work. Sourcery requires this line first. You don't need a protocol to do it. You can do it with a class. You can do it with enums and structs as well. You can find it on Sorcery documentation.
All right, I guess that brings to the end of the first half of the meetup. And thanks a lot, Viranche, for quite a lightning talk to kind of focus on the programming stuff. And I hope some people kind of got to know about this tool called Sorcery. And I see somebody posting some ideas to use Sorcery in some other use cases. So yeah, that's what the community is about. Cool. So thanks, Viranche, and I'm kind of e-clapping for you for on the behalf of everybody since this is the stream. So thanks a lot.
Thank you.
All right. So what we're gonna do next is, guys, we have links that we have posted, and I'm gonna post it again on the live stream to kind of join the free room wherein you can talk more about the talks that are delivered and that our speakers kind of delivered right now. You can find it in the live chat right now. I'm kind of posting it again. So whichever talk you want to kind of discuss, you can go in that particular room and go and discuss on that particular topic, and you can socialize. It is pretty much the open free room. You can talk about it. You can ask personal questions. All right, cool. So all right, see you in a while. I guess we'll kind of come back in another what 15 minutes. So let's kind of mark. We'll kind of start the broadcast again at 11:15. So the link would be same. Everything would be same. Stay tuned. I mean, you can join us back again on the same link. Let's join the room. All right. Hey guys, welcome back. I hope you guys can hear and see me. Yes, I see that you can see. All right, cool. All right. I hope you had good discussions in your free rooms, and I kind of had a great discussion with Rahul and Yash. Um, so right now we are kind of back to our streaming. Let me quickly grab our another speaker who is Samuel Edwin, and then we can start. Here he is. All right, cool. Hey everyone, say hi to Sam. Sam, hi to everyone.
Hi everyone.
Sam, you're mute.
Hey, can you hear me?
I can't hear you. Okay, it seems there was some technical glitch at Sam's end. He is kind of joining back in a while. All right, it seems everybody could hear Sam, but just not me. All right, let me kind of wait.
Hello.
Okay, Sam, here he is.
Can you hear me?
Yes, so again, I think the same thing is happening. I'm not able to hear you, but probably everybody else can. Let me just check my settings in that case. Sam, can you kind of say something for me?
Test. 1, 2,
Yeah,
3.
cool. So it was me again.
All
The
right.
technical
I was
was
cheated.
All right, so everyone, here is Sam. He is the technical architect working at Tokopedia. And those who don't know, Tokopedia is an e-commerce company. It's a huge e-commerce company in Indonesia. Probably you can call it Amazon of Indonesia. And it has been around, I think, 10 years for Tokopedia to be there in Indonesia. I think more than 10, 11 years, I guess. And Sam was one of those developers who kind of started to write Tokopedia iOS application and scaled to the level it is right now. And Sam is going to talk about some bits, some insights of crash reporting. Over to you, Sam. Handing over the virtual mic to you.
All right. Thank you, Meet. So, hi everyone. My name is Samuel. I'm from Tokopedia. So, I've been working here for around 5 years. And today I want to tell you a story about our experience in dealing with crashes in our app. So crashes are inseparable from mobile developers' life, whether you're an Android or iOS developer. When we create a bug, one of the possible things that can happen to the user's device is the app crashing. So if the app crashes when you are coding with Xcode, finding out the reason for the crash is relatively easy. You can quickly find out which file and line that caused the crash as shown in the current slide. It is totally a different story when you are debugging the app that is released in the App Store. You don't have access to the user's phone, therefore making it difficult to debug those crashes. You can only find out the files and line numbers that cause the crash only when you connect Xcode to the user's device. It is also very impractical to contact the user and try connecting your Xcode with the user's device. They could be living like 100 kilometers away from you. So there's no way you can come to their house and try to connect their device, right? Fortunately, there is a tool that lets us debug the crashes in App Store build. One of the most popular solutions that people use is Firebase Crashlytics that have been existing for years. I think a lot of you who have been doing mobile development for a long time will surely have used Crashlytics once at least. For those of you who just started your mobile development journey, I would suggest you to install Firebase Crashlytics in your app. The installation is very simple and it takes only like a few minutes. It is also free to use. So this is an example of the crash report after you install Crashlytics. You can tell immediately where the crashes happen, in what file, and which line number. All we need to do then is to go to that file and fix the bugs. By looking at the picture, we know that the source of the crash is located at the viewcontroller.swift at line 24. Unfortunately, debugging the crashes isn't always that easy. There is an example. This is an example of a crash that is hard to debug. This crash happened because there is a bug in our implementation of UI collection view data source. This is very hard to debug because we don't know which view controller that is causing the crash. And to make it worse, we have hundreds of UI collection views in our app. The example from the previous slide could also be hard to debug. Maybe the crashes only occur once at a time. Or maybe you need to open the view controller with a specific product ID, for example. And we have like hundreds of millions of products in Tokopedia. So these are some other examples of crashes that are hard to debug, like collection view and auto layout misconfigurations, and asynchronous code that is usually not showing the exact file and line numbers, and also crashes that are only possible on certain device configuration like language, calendar, or accessibility settings. So if you want to solve a bug relatively quickly, you need to be able to reliably reproduce the bugs, because you might need a lot of trials and errors before you can fix them. Bugs that are hard to reproduce will be a big source of frustration. So the question is, how are you going to reproduce the bugs if this is all you have? When you find yourself in this situation, what you should do is add more data so you can have a more reliable way to reproduce them. Seasoned developers will most likely use Crashlytics when launching a new app. What a lot of people don't know is that there are some useful features in Crashlytics that can make your debugging easy. And this is what this talk is about. So I'm going to show you how to use Crashlytics to solve the crashes that were mentioned before. The first tool that Crashlytics provides is adding user ID to your crashes. There are some benefits in doing this. First one, you can know whether the crashes happen to lots of users or whether it happens to only a small amount of users. Second one is you can also know whether the crashes happen to only users that are logged in, or maybe it only happened to guest users, or maybe all of them. And the last one is, this is also useful if your users can contact you through email or a support ticket, for example. So if the user ID is included in the support ticket or the email, then it is very easy to find out what's wrong with the app on their device. Adding user ID to the crash report is also quite simple. Just add the code, like mentioned in the slide, at the start of your app, also when the user is logged in or logged out. The second tool I want to share is setting custom values. Actually, Crashlytics has already provided some basic information to help debugging, like shown in the previous slides. You can see some information like the device model, which iPhone, orientation, even RAM and disk size. And you can even see the operating system. So those are the basic informations that can be useful. But in many situations, though, those informations are not enough to reproduce the crashes. So Crashlytics provided the capability to add your own custom values to adjust to your needs. In the example image, you can see that we added some extra values such as calendar settings, time zone, and locale. So you can pretty much add anything you want in there. One of the situations where we find this helpful is when we were debugging crashes related to the calendar setting. So Gregorian calendar is the most used calendar by Indonesian people, and I think it also applies worldwide. It contains 365 days in a year, 12 months, and yeah, so on. So after we were looking at some of the crashes, we find out that the crashes were never happening on the devices that use the Gregorian calendar, but all of them were either using like Buddhist or Islamic calendar, where they have different number of days, months, and years. Actually, you can still narrow down the crashes to a specific view controller without this custom value, but finding out the non-Gregorian calendar is the root cause will take longer without this custom value. So the last tool that is provided by Crashlytics is the logging capability, also known as breadcrumbs by some people. The point of using logs is to add traces of the activities that are happening before the crash. And I got a few tips on where to add those logs. The first important place to add logs is around your app lifecycle. When the app is launched after kill, when it is entering or exiting background, and also when the app is going to be terminated. This is the result of adding the traces in the app lifecycle. You can tell from these logs that the app was crashing when the user put your app in the background. Maybe they were having a phone call, for example, or they were maybe using some other app. Another important spots to add the logs, besides the app lifecycle, is when you want to handle inputs from outside the app, like opening push notifications and universal links, for example. The iOS ecosystem nowadays is very complex. There are many ways to launch your app. First one, you can open it directly from the home screen like usual. Second one, you can open it from tapping on push notifications. The third one, you can also open it from browsers, like opening the link from Safari, for example. You can also do a long tap on the home icon, and a quick action menu will show up. This was used to call 3D Touch, but I think it is abandoned by Apple nowadays. You can also open your app from Siri, and widget is also one of the new entry points that is introduced since iOS 14, and there's many more. So we are now going to see how the logs will look like when the crashes happen through this scenario. This is the crash that is happening when the users launch the app, and then they switch to another app, and then tapping on a URL that opens our app, like Safari, for example. You can see from the last row what URL is causing the crash. In this case, the URL is crashdemo/products/111. So in order to reproduce that, you just need to do the same steps, like open the app, go to background, and type this URL on Safari, and then it will quickly reproduce the problem. And this one is also the same crash, but it is happening when the app was killed. So the previous one is happening when the users open the app, go to the background, and then do something else. But this one is happening right away after the app was launched. So you can see that the logs only showing up application did finish launching, because it was never be able to do anything else, like compared to the this one. Next example is a crash that happened when the user opened a push notification while the app is in background. The order is similar to the previous URL crash. Users open the app, they switch to another app, and then the application will resign active. Application did enter background is called. Then sometime later, the user receive a push notification, and then the user is navigated back to the app. You can see the payload of the push notification that was received before the crash. This is also a crash that caused by a push notification, but when the app was killed. So you can see that only app delegate that finished launching is called. So we have a crash that was happening on a very specific situations, like I think a few years ago. So the crash only happened when the marketing team sends a push notification with a very specific payload, but it only happens when the app is killed, not when the app is in the background. And Indonesian iPhone users love to kill apps they don't use for some reason. I don't know. Even though they don't really have to, right? We know as a developer that the OS will take care everything for us, right? But for casual users, they pretty much didn't know this. They think that by killing the app, they will free up some memory and resources. And because of this, the number of crashes that caused by this situation is quite high. And reproducing this bug is easy by just looking at the logs when you have added these logs, and it will be very difficult without it. Another important place to add logs is when you are navigating between view controllers. Add the code on view controllers view that appear so that the logging will happen only when the view controller is visible on the screen. So let's go back to the crash previous slides ago. This was very hard to reproduce because of lacking information. Now we will see that this is going to be much easier to debug after adding some logs. After adding logs to view controllers, we can now tell precisely where the crash happened. You can see what's happening in the app just by looking at the logs. First, user opens the app, and then they go to the home screen, which is the default screen that everyone will get. And then application did become active is called. Then the user decides to navigate to the shop screen, and then they decide to open some product in the shop screen, and then it finally crashed. So the previous crash that is very hard to locate now is now much easier to debug just by adding some logs. If you want the logs to be useful, then you have to put this in most of your view controllers, if not all. And adding the code in each view controller's view did appear, though, is definitely not a fun thing to do. Even adding logs to just like 20 view controllers will start to feel tedious, right? So is there any better way to do this? Fortunately, yes. With a technique called method swizzling, adding logs to view controllers will be a very simple task. I'm going to explain a bit on what swizzling is, just in case you never heard of it. So imagine we have this myObject class that have two methods foo and bar, which only prints some stuff. You can tell what the result will be just by looking, right? When you call method foo, it will print the string foo, and then when you call the method bar, it will print bar. Nothing weird here. It's pretty much straightforward, right? And in the next step, we are going to use a third-party library called JRSwizzle to switch the method implementations. You can use anything you want, but JRSwizzle is the simplest one I can find. So after calling the swizzle method above, when you call the method foo, it will print bar instead. And when you call bar, it will print foo. So one of the common use cases in swizzling is to switch to method implementations like shown in this slide. So what you have to remember though, in Swift, if you want to swizzle some stuff, you have to put some attributes at Objective-C dynamic. Otherwise, it will not work. So now, with the swizzling technique we just learned, what we need to do first is to create a new method that will be swapped with the default UIViewControllers view that appear. There are two important things happening in this code. First one is we add the log to the Crashlytics. And the second one is we call the original view did appear, which is implemented by UIKit. It might look weird to you that we call swizzled view did appear at the end instead of calling like UIKit's view did appear. So this is intentional, not a typo. Please remember that our view did appear method is now swapped with the original UIKit implementation. So you can only call the original implementation by calling this swizzle view did appear. So this swizzle view did appear now contains the original implementation. If it sounds confusing to you, then it's fine. You can try learning some more on the internet about swizzling. But the essence is it is mostly about switching to implementations of methods. So that's all you need to know in this context. So the next thing to do is swap the viewDidAppear method with the one we just created when the app is launched. So after this code is executed, all view controllers will log to Crashlytics when they appear on screen. As you can see from the image, every view controller will be logged automatically, but there is one problem. The classes that you don't need to log, such as UI navigation controller or UI input window controller, will also get printed here. This will make reading the logs difficult because there's too many unimportant stuffs. And the solution to this is quite simple, actually. All we need to do is filter out some data from the logs. The quick way to do this is by excluding all view controllers that have the UI prefix, because all the default UIKit view controllers have UI as the prefix, right? And you can see now the logs are much clearer because we only print the important stuff. There is one thing that still can be improved here. If you look at the logs, there are 3 shop view controllers that is open before the user is crashing. So of all those 3, the question is, why is the last view controller crashing? What's the difference between the last one and the previous 2? So we know the shop view controller is crashing, but we still don't know why, because we are still lacking some information. It can be helpful, like if we can put some shop ID in here, then we can then it will be much easier to debug. So you can see some hex numbers on the right side of the name, but those are pretty much useless since it is just showing you memory addresses and it will be different every time. The solution to this is also simple. You can just override the view controller's description, and this method will be called every time you are converting from NS object into a string. Now the log is much more useful because of the IDs. To reproduce the crash in this case, you can go to the product detail view controller with the ID 7890 as the product ID. So you don't have to guess which product ID is causing the crash anymore. So for the closing, there's one important tip that you need to remember. Don't put too much data in the logs, but just enough so you can reliably find out the root cause. So you might need some trials and errors to find a sweet spot between logging too much and logging not enough logging. The reason for this is because Crashlytics actually have max capacity on how much data you can put in the logs. If your log exceeds that capacity, then the previous data will be removed. So instead of getting a more complete information, you get the incomplete ones instead. Another important thing to remember is to protect users' privacy. Do not put information that can be tied directly to the users, such as physical address, phone numbers, or even emails. There's a lot of information you can get just by logging the user ID. Like in our company, for example, we protect our users' data very seriously, and leaking personal information can lead to serious consequence. Actually, there are still many useful spots in the app that you can add logs. But the ones I mentioned before is already good enough to narrow down the problems. So yeah, I think that's all for my talk today. Thank you for listening, everyone.
Thanks, Sam. That was quite informative. I think people would be crash analytics is something that most of the people kind of use for crash reporting. But what can we do with that? What all we can do with that to kind of track those difficult to track crashes? I think with the inputs, with the suggestions that you kind of made, it would be simpler for all of us to track it down that. So thanks, Sam. Clap from all the people for you. All right, guys. Any questions if we have for Sam? I'll quickly check Pigeonhole, and let me kind of present Pigeonhole here. Yeah, I guess people can see Pigeonhole now. All right, I've sorted it from the latest, and the very first question for Sam is the log slow down the app?
So I think there's a performance penalty, but it is very small. I think they already optimized the implementation. But one thing you should remember is to not put this in the tight loop, because it will eventually slow down the app. Like if you just put this like on the app lifecycle, then I think it will be very fast.
Okay. All right, and cool. So there is no more question on the Pigeonhole, and I'm kind of going to have a look at the live chat, and yeah, there is nothing but praises for you. So cool talk. All right, Sam. So one thing that I would want to kind of hear from you, like you kind of now have suggestions around using the Crashlytics and the breadcrumb and everything, while kind of going and traversing. Doing a narrative approach to kind of implement swizzling and some oops concept into kind of your code to get all these things for the tracking. What are the mistakes that you did, and did you do any mistakes, and did you kind of do any blunder, any more suggestions that people kind of avoid?
So yeah, like I mentioned before, do not put too much data in there. So we tried to put like our network request and response there, and our JSON payload is quite big. And eventually, what we see is only like some of our most of them were only our network requests and response. And the previous tips that I've shown to people before, like logging the app lifecycle and the view controllers, it was gone. Everything was gone because we put too much data in there. So I think that's the most important thing.
All right, interesting actually. So it's like use it, but use it carefully. Otherwise, like you will be kind of bloat the logs, and then again it would be kind of you need to kind of read a lot of logs to grab things and all. Again, you would be lost. So yeah, cool tips, Sam. All right, guys. I guess this is done here. So the next talk that we are kind of going to have is from the speaker who is based out of London, and the time zone is something that is a problematic situation, and it seems that we kind of um, got free before the allocated time for that speaker. So I think we need to kind of wait for some time to get to hear Robin Malhotra talking about cellular view controllers. So what we can do right now is like the previous free room that we had. I think it was separate. We could not do the networking the right way, the meetup way, I should say. So I'm gonna post a link right away in the live chat, and you guys can join there. Ravi would be allowing everybody. So this is the very first time we are kind of doing the meetup. So pardon if there is any chaos, if there is any technical glitches and all, because we are also learning, and everybody is kind of learning to work in these times. So I hope you guys would be able to see the link. If not, I'm going to post it a couple of times, because the last time I posted, I think there was some glitch and it kind of didn't post. So please join the room. Let's talk to each other. Let's get to know each other. And definitely Sam, Aman, and Viranchee would be there. So if you guys still wants to kind of know their learnings about themselves or about the topic, everything, then we can join. Not here. I'm not sure. Yeah, here. I think The link is posted again. So please, guys, join there and let's talk there. So I'm gonna halt the streaming for some time. Till the time we have our speaker, we can have the networking. You can grab your tea, coffee, or breakfast that we interrupted in this morning. So yeah, let's see there. Cool. Uh, Hey Robin, good morning. Let's kind of start with the
Yep.
last session of this meetup.
Okay.
So, all right. So, everyone, he's Robin. He's working as an indie iOS developer these days. Earlier, he was working with Gojek, and I guess he worked with Kayako too. So, kind of did some great work at both the companies. Kind of scale those companies to the levels that they are at. And right now, he's kind of joining us from London, and he'll be talking about cellular view controllers, which is kind of using. Uh, so it's like reusing basically the table view cells and kind of putting view controls over there. So over to you, Robin. This virtual mic is yours, and let's hear it from you.
Alrighty. Okay. Just I'm assuming audio and video are working. Do interrupt me if things go wrong. This is my first time doing sort of a over a call talk. It's been quite a while since I've done this. Let's see how this goes. So hey everyone, how's it going? I'm Robin. I'm currently an iOS engineer halfway across the world. It's super early, at least by my standards here, but I'm sure this will work out just fine. In a previous life, I was an engineer at Gojek. We were the Uber meets Lyft, Deliveroo, Swiggy meets everything else. Like sort of the closest model I could find elsewhere in the world was WeChat over in China, and which is sort of like 18 apps over in one. To begin this talk, I'm going to show you a few apps that we might use in our day-to-day lives. And so that's Apple News, Music, Netflix, and Instagram. And when you look at an app like this, you see that they span across like all sorts of categories. And what makes them special and hard for us as iOS engineers to implement is that there are vast amounts of just like nested scrolling content everywhere that all constantly needs to maintain its own state, and it has to respond to user input. So as an example, Instagram stories needs to maintain like a viewed state of like, have you viewed this person's story or not? When you stay on a post for a little while, it shows like a little like add a comment thing. Um, the Apple Music follow button, when you follow someone, it needs to add like two or three more suggestions so that you keep on expanding your follow graph. The Netflix feed leads to load like more and more movies that are relevant to you, or TV shows that are relevant to you. And so there's a whole bunch of stuff there. If, for example, one of these services was running an ad, it would also need to run like analytics on how long you viewed at the ad, so it could so that they could charge their ad provider, the correct amount. So at the time of coming up with the idea for this talk, I was building a similar app, and it had large amounts of scrolling content. It had analytics. It had a whole lot of these things, and I thought deeply about like how do you build something like this. And I came across this talk. It's by Dave DeLong, who the original impetus for this talk came from him. Um, it's also a 6-part blog series on his website. Dave is an engineer at Apple right now, so unfortunately he can't talk a lot about this anymore. But he suggests a lot of like interesting ideas. Like as an example, I assume a lot of folks here use Alamofire or something like SD Web Image to do remote image loading in your views. His argument is that a view should not be responsible for something as important and complicated as loading an image, and that instead you should have an image view controller that you add via the containment API. The containment API has existed since iOS, I think 5. It's a very old API, and it still like just works fine. Adding child view controllers is something that's done in all parts of iOS, including places like widgets. Right now used to be like the old non-Swift UI widgets used to be all remote view controllers if you've ever implemented those APIs. So his suggestion was like, why not, maybe the solution to all of these problems that we're having building iPhone apps is that we should be using more and more view controllers. And so this is sort of where it started. I personally reached out to him, and we exchanged emails a lot about this, and that's where sort of this talk came up. This is not a unique idea across the industry. Companies like Airbnb have been doing things like these have been trying to implement things like this. What we'll basic and honestly, the answer at this point appears to be that if you work at a large enough company, like apparently when your valuation crosses like $1 billion, you will start implementing this from scratch, which is fun and interesting and says something about our industry, I guess. So the thing we're going to go over right now is, okay, what are we implementing? We're implementing something that looks like this: horizontal, vertical scrolling. And let's sort of build from like first principles how something like this comes about. So we want scrolling, so UI scroll view. We want a collection view or a table view of some sort for vertical scrolling. We want a collection view inside each cell because we need to have some sort of horizontal scrolling going along. Imagine like Netflix, Instagram, all of those UIs that I just showed you. You probably need to separate out the data sources because you don't want to end up with this, again, massive chunk of view controller code. Each of those nested scrolling cells now has responsibilities: pagination, user interface updates, loading states, network requests, and and the proposition that usually comes in is, okay, we'll allocate this to a separate object. We'll call, that's for now terrible naming, but we'll call it a cell manager. Uh, and this will figure out when the cell is being displayed, perform a start action. When the cell moves out of the display area, it needs to get rid of resources to save on CPU. When you're reaching the end of a horizontal list, talk to a network client, and it has to like update its state or whatever. And this is also true for things like any sort of like user interaction that takes place. So let's flesh this out a little more. We'll create a protocol for we're Swift engineers. We love protocols. We're going to call it reusable, and every class gets a reusable identifier. Every type gets a reusable identifier. Sorry. And we'll just use the Objective-C runtime to sort of generate that reuse identifiers. Almost every library that does automatic cell registration does this in one way, shape, or form or another. So this is a good enough implementation for us. We'll create a UI view that's a UITableViewCell and conforms to this protocol. And what we'll do inside here is that we'll remove all the subviews. We'll add the subview that we want, the view that we want to add, and we'll align all of our edges to the content view. That's just like at the time of writing this code, I was also like using just an auto layout library that did this for us. And because we're iOS engineers, we still have to do this. So if you ever forget to do this, it leads to a world of pain. But yeah. So what else does our cell manager need to know? So these are those responsibilities that we talked about. Let's make them concrete functions for us. So the content view of the cell is loaded. It will be displayed. It will end displaying. And we also need to do like some sort of layout changes, like as in the case of Instagram, where we added a comment section. We'd have to like add those subviews, animate it in, change our size, all of that stuff. Here's the sort of, if I were to make an architecture diagram of this, every cell has a state or a model, talks to another object called the manager, updates its views based on state, and the view and sort of the state talks to the manager, the cell talks to the manager, and it sort of is a middleman for this communication. This diagram should look very familiar to you. If you've done iOS development long enough, this starts looking a lot like things that we've seen before. And to make you to help you see that, let's just isolate the cell manager for a second. And again, same functions. Whether it is loaded, whether it will display, whether it will stop displaying, whether it needs to do any layout changes. If we do a little bit of grammar messing around, what you end up with is sort of, oh wait, this is the view controller lifecycle, sort of just like recreated from scratch for no good reason. We've made like a poor person's UI view controller, and this is like work that Apple has done for us for free, and it is all like nicely tested and neatly packaged. And this is sort of the giant takeaway of this talk, is that maybe putting view controllers inside of cells is not such a bad idea. And we're going to go into implementation details, so bear with me on this. But this is sort of like the giant like philosophical thing of this talk. And this allows you to deal with complexity a lot easier as well. So with this newfound knowledge, we're going to basically come back to the old MVC diagram that we all love and live for, the cellular view controller. And that's basically what it does. It controls the cell. And this is the big takeaway. But a natural question here is, one of the reasons UITableView has the performance that it does is because of things like cell reuse. We still haven't tackled all of those questions yet. So let's look at this. So we'll create another protocol. Again, Swift engineers love protocols. Two associated types, the state and what it needs to be created. So these now look like our usual UITableViewCell methods with a configure with state, create with some creation arguments, and we need intrinsic size and content size for some auto layout things. We'll get to that. We'll copy John Sandell's add and remove plugin view controllers idea and just like literally copy paste code because we don't need anything more than this. So now we can create sort of like a view controller embedding cell. So it's a where our generic type T is a UI view controller. It's nullifiable for reuse. When we're preparing for reuse, we'll remove it. On configure, we'll either create it or have a cached view controller ready to go. We'll add it to the parent view controller, add the content view, do whatever auto layer things we need to do, and then cache our view controller as a property. When we're intrinsic content size and size that fits are simply passed on to the view controller as a by the way, tiny error here. It should be vc.view.intrinsic content size. Sorry about that. They need to be passed on. Basically, it's used as a proxy method. Now let's go over to our call site where code like this might be used, and this is where things start getting a little uglier. Again, reuse identifiers are hard, but now suddenly you've got not only like this giant base class, but also like the generic, not base class, but you get what I mean, and the sort of the object that goes inside of it, and like each of these arrows is one line of code. Still okay, not too bad. Now let's look at what our other table view data source methods look like. So we'll have to dequeue a reusable cell with that identifier again, cast it, configure with whatever we need to and the creation arguments it needs, and that's basically what gets us there. It's not pretty code. UIKit was not built for this, but it still does the job. Like compare this to like Swift UI code that might exist today, which would just be like an if else, or in older Swift UI this would just be a group. But the problem is now we also need to get view did load, view did appear, and view did disappear method. So we'll have to hook back into the delegate. And now suddenly your UI table view object hierarchy is a little more messed up because the delegate also needs to then relay this information back to a view controller that's embedded inside every cell. So not ideal, but we're there. I mean, this achieves the philosophical sort of thing that we want to do, but practically it's not so great. And all of this stuff feels really nasty. And what if there was a better way to do all of this? This is all of the stuff that we've wanted. We've done a lot of it in a not so hacky way. And there's other issues as well. You have to proxy intrinsic content size. You're talking to delegates. There's reuse nastiness. UIKit is just not built for something like this because, like, again, this is not what the UIKit engineers thought we would be doing with this API. And honestly, for most things, just making a UI scroll view and just like if you're making like a form or a basic home screen, this is more than good enough. Just like make a UI scroll view, put in your view controllers, lay them out vertically. Try not to use UI stack view because UI stack view is somehow still buggy after 6 years. I'm still very bitter about that because I was actually solving a UI stack view bug at work like a week ago. And all this performance stuff is also like a little fraught. And at work we started looking like, okay, how do other like companies solve this problem? And we ended up on this library called Async Display Kit. It's now called Texture. It's used by beloved apps across the world: Pinterest, Yahoo, not Yahoo, YouTube, New York Times, Apollo for Reddit. And we thought maybe you don't need cell reuse. Maybe if we abandon cell reuse and align with a different philosophy, we can solve all of these problems because that's literally where all of our problems are stemming from. What Async Display Kit does is it creates a layer, an abstraction on top of views called nodes that can be allocated very cheaply. Nodes cache things like layout data, size data, etc., and things like layer hierarchies, and are themselves thread safe, so they can be created on multiple threads, laid out on again multiple threads. And it does not do reusability for specific reasons. What it instead does is it maintains a state of like what views are actually visible to the user and sort of divides them into 3 states. So in a scrolling view, You have what's visible to the screen, a little bit above and below the screen height, the viewport, and what is display is what is about to be displayed if the user just starts scrolling. And preload is stuff that is not going to be visible anytime soon, but we can start preloading things like um, remote loading images, caching things, etc. And this is a very nice architecture for building scrolling feeds, which is exactly what Facebook does for a living. Facebook originally built this library. So your content goes from preload, display, visible to then visible and then preload back again. And this helps a lot of things. It makes remote loading images a lot easier. It also has a lot of like nice smart things built in. So as an example, if you're in a UI navigation controller stack and you have like a table view inside of it, and you push two view controllers onto it, the UI table view is made aware of the fact that its visible state has gone from visible to preload to display, and you can actually deallocate resources for free. And it'll also reduce the number of preloaded and displayed cells because it knows that those will not be visible to the user anytime soon. And there's new features being added, and this is the one that actually stood out to me, is that they natively support putting view controllers inside of their table node cells, which is their class for table views. And it's all for zero cost. It does all of this stuff for us, and it works independently of this entire table view lifestyle reusable queue stack. All lifecycle methods are called. It's all sort of done for free. And oops. And just because like the pile of tricks is not small enough, it also like has a cell node method that takes a view controller block that where you can return a view controller from. And it all just works. Everything, all of this custom implementation that we've been doing since the past like whatever 10-15 minutes, all of that can be removed, and we all have to replace it with this 2 lines of code. And all our UIKit methods are called for free. There's no fiddling around with the manager class. There's no calling into UITableViewDelegate. There's no prepare for reuse, no reuse identifiers, no intrinsic size proxying, no setting auto resizing mask translates auto resizing mask to false. You can reuse a UI view controller that already exists as like an alert or something else in your UI as a cell, and you don't have to do any work for it. It's all swift and painless. So pun intended. And this is just like one of the classes that we already had, which was so you create an AS view controller, you have its insets, you set its insets, you automatically manage subnodes as a special async display kit thing that basically on the basis of the view hierarchy decides basically on the basis of what you return in this layout spec method decides what views to add or remove, so you don't have to manually do it. It's a bit like it. The way I would describe it is it's like Swift UI before Swift UI, so it's a lot more stable as well, which I enjoy using. So you can this was basically like take any view controller, add a little bit of padding around it, and put it inside of a cell. And our call side looks so much better. It's just 2 lines of code. And make a view controller, put it in a cell, return it somewhere. And we use this everywhere in our app, and the effects it has had are beyond magical at this point. Since I've left, like this app has added things like live streaming, event tickets, countdown timers, and things like that. And it all like the architecture has scaled with the aspirations of the product, and which is something that is very rare in our industry. And you like this also makes things like you are suddenly want to reuse a cell as a regular UI view, you have to do weird things like this. But ASL node and AS node are all have a very well-defined sort of class hierarchy, so you can actually reuse nodes in places in different places without actually having to worry about these things. They all have the same initializers. They don't step on each other the way UI table view. Like UITableViewCell is its own very special case of UI view. That's not how things work. I've got a demo of this working on GitHub if you want to check it out. This is not a new or unique idea, by the way. I'm going to link to some blog posts in my keynote that you can check out as well. We do have time, right? Okay. There's some more content I wanted to show you. So if you want to do things like this, where you have like again more scrolling hierarchy going on, you've got like this header, you've got season lists, episodes, all sorts of weird state that don't fit like standard UIKit behavior. And this is sort of what your screen looks like. You get a giant blob of JSON, and JSON is a tree. It's an object tree, and you need to display this tree. and you try to do it in like a collection view or a table view, and you realize that collection view and table views only have sections and rows. You then have to do a lot of things to, and by the way, this example is of like a shopping app. As an example, you're building Amazon from scratch. You start condensing things into sections and rows. So order tracking now becomes an order tracking section. Reviews get condensed into this. Then something, a deeply nested hierarchy also has to have the same thing, or it gets split into two sections. And now then when you want to like do any sort of event tracking, you're constantly trying to figure out, okay, so positive reviews was section 4, in the JSON it's section 2 row 3, or it is just section 2 because it contains multiple reviews, but in the table view hierarchy it's whatever came before it, add those sections and rows together plus something, and you're doing all of this weird mathematics to figure out what's actually going on. But with this idea, you can actually make each of those independent things a view controller, and they all maintain their own state. So you can actually load reviews separately, and actually load your product page first, which is what your users interested in. This is an example of that strategy, where all of these, the header, each of those colors is its own view, is a separate UI table view controller, and it's all like 160 FPS. This was recorded on an iPhone 6 at the time. Like all of this works. As long as you do like content size, etc. correctly, all of this happens to just like work smoothly with the system that we've created. Some preemptive Q&A performance, this is already done everywhere on iOS. So this is the original like today view widget thing. A lot of places in iOS today do embed view controllers in cells. It's just that for whatever reason Apple does not promote this as practice. So like that's and it seems to work fine. It worked fine for us. It scaled our app. It works fine in other parts of iOS. If it works for Apple, chances are it'll work for you. So that's preemptive Q&A done. Some plugs and personal announcements. I've got a couple of just like blog posts / whatever ready. Sort of I'm working on in my free time. I've got links. I'm gonna put links in the keynote, which I'll probably share. Do let me know if any of you have comments about those. Luckily, they're all on Dropbox, so Dropbox comes with a comment section built in. Yeah, that's it. We can do Q&A now, unless I've been talking into the void for this while.
No, you are not talking to the void.
Question. Once again, we wanted question asking link. Oh, do you mean to the posts, right?
All right. Let me just see that. Do we have questions for you? Okay, so I do have questions, but not for your talk. It's like the previous talk that Sam did. Right now, I see some kind of discussion going on in the live chat, but again, there's no question. People are sharing their experiences because, I think this texture, which is like formerly known as like a sync display kit, kind of a lot of people are using it, and even at Tokopedia, we are kind of making great use of that. So cool, guys. If you have any questions, anything, please post on the Pigeonhole. I'll kind of I'll talk for a couple of minutes, and then we'll kind of end the broadcast, and we'll move to the networking session when we can kind of talk and learn more about the speakers and share each other's experiences. So yeah, towards the end, I kind of did a bit of introduction in the start. My name is Aman Gupta. I'm one of the engineering managers at Tokopedia. And the people who don't know about Tokopedia, it is an e-commerce company. It's a giant over there, and it's like you can call it like reluctantly you can call it like Amazon of Indonesia. And so it's like we are hiring too. We have offices across 2-3 locations. So we are hiring right now for Noida, and we did share a form in the live chat and on the events page also with the form. Please fill out that form if you're interested. If you're not, let's kind of just get connected on LinkedIn, on Twitter, and all the pages. We'll share the details of all the videos will be posted later on the YouTube, and the keynotes probably I'll request the speakers to kind of share, and we'll figure out a way to kind of share it using the event link. So that's about it. Thanks a lot for waking up that early in the morning, especially you, Robin. I think for us, it was pretty much like 9-10, and for you, it was like too early. So thanks for kind of sharing all the experiences that you had. So I'm gonna hop in to the networking session. Would request the moderator to end the broadcast. See you guys in the networking session. Bye bye. We'll do a picture over there. We'll talk about each other. So see you there. Bye bye.
Bye.